milestone in this situation that we've been dealing with is that there's no water is flowing over the emergency spillway at this time. That's an important thing, because our primary goal is to ensure safety of our community and the residents that we serve, and that is a big step forward towards that. The lake levels are continuing to fall. That's also an important point. Our objective is to lower the lake level by 50 feet in order to prepare for future inflow of water due to storms and precipitation. We're continuing to monitor with the Department of Water Resources staff, continuing to monitor the spillways for erosion. As you know, we issued an evacuation order because of a situation that we thought was significant to public safety or posed a threat to public safety. I understand that there are a lot of rumors out there suggesting that the evacuation is going to end at 4:15 today. That is not accurate, folks. This is still a dynamic situation. It's still a situation we're trying to assess the damage, and we need to have time to make sure that before we allow people back into those areas, it is safe to do so. So I want to make it clear, the evacuation is still in effect. Now, that said, I also want to make it very clear that we're working on a repopulation plan to allow for the safe and orderly repopulation or return of the citizens to their homes. When it is safe, based upon the evaluations from DWR and our state and federal partners, then we'll be in a better position to make the decision as to when to lift that evacuation. But again, I want to make it clear, evacuations are still in place. I recognize that this is displacing a lot of people. I recognize what a hardship it is placed on our community. But again, as I told you last night, we did this because our primary purpose is to ensure public safety. It was a hard decision to make, but I can tell you that the decision to release the evacuation and allow people to return to the evacuate area is an equally difficult decision to make, and it's one that has to be based on analysis that we're receiving from subject matter experts in the field. So, thank you very much, and I'm going to now turn it over to my colleague from the Cal Fire.
Thank you, Chief Honey. Kevin Lawson, I'm the Incident Commander with Cal Fire Incident Management Team 3. I wanted to share with you guys that we are in close cooperation and in unified command with Butte County Sheriff and the Department of Water Resources. As the Sheriff had stated, it's very much a fluid and dynamic operation that is going on out there. When you try to factor in what we're dealing with Mother Nature, it's hard to look at a crystal ball and predict how that's going to evolve. So with the close communication and cooperation amongst these agencies, as well as our state and local counterparts providing us with the resources that we're getting, and we are getting the resources that we request and the resources that we need. So I assure you, it's working seamlessly amongst the three of us, and I expect that to continue.
And if I could just add, now that we've discussed that, I just want to talk briefly about a press release that you should have received from my office a little while ago. Reference the actions we took to protect the inmates housed in the Butte County Jail. It was necessary for us to evacuate those inmates when we issued the evacuation order for the general public. At the time, I did not disclose the location where those inmates were going to be housed because it would have posed a security risk while they were in transit. They have now arrived safely, and we are very fortunate to have the assistance of the Alameda County Sheriff's Office. Those inmates, all in excess of 500 of them, were transported down to Alameda County Jail, and they're arrived safely and they're currently being housed. Sheriff Ahern was gracious enough to do that, and they will remain in that location until such time as we determine it is safe to return them to the Butte County Jail. The press release that you received gives family members the information they need to make contact with their loved ones. It provides a number that they can contact so that they can check on their loved ones and perhaps contact them and visit them.
So, my name is Bill Croyle, acting director of the California Department of Water Resources. So, as indicated, we are not water is not flowing over the emergency spillway. Our efforts to continue to monitor our situation on the flood control structure that was damaged earlier in this week continues. We're using a wide variety of monitoring techniques, including 24/7 people on the ground, live feed video, and drone resources to make sure that we understand the dynamics behind our existing system. We're moving 100,000 cubic feet per second down that spillway. We've been doing that for about last 16 or 17 hours. We've bumped the flow up when this situation occurred late yesterday afternoon to mitigate the impact of that erosion that was occurring. That solution worked to reduce the threat. It took a while for that water to come down and for us to get in and assess that condition at the downstream side of the emergency spillway. We're going to continue to work on the challenges that we have with this facility. As indicated, we're working to really dig down into the reservoir and move as much water out of that reservoir, and so we have space for the storms that we expect to come in, as well as the snow runoff later this spring. People are working very hard to deal with some of the challenges that we have. As indicated, we have a pretty diverse multi-agency and contractor resources are being deployed to address a whole number of things that are popping up, including implementing protective measures or corrective measures to make sure that we're not only dealing with what's occurring now, but have a little longer perspective on what may occur with our spring runoff period. Thank you.
We're now open to take questions, but again, we'd like to limit those to a very few questions. Our emergency managers have a lot of work to do, and we'd like to get back and do what we can to protect the citizens of Butte County.
What is the current inflow into the lake, and how do you expect to hit the 50-foot target by the storm time the storm hits on Wednesday?
Yeah, so the question is, what is the inflow? I'm sorry, I should have covered that. It's an important part of the dynamics within the reservoir operations. So this morning about 9 o'clock, we had approximately 37,000 acre-feet of water flowing into the reservoir. So we're on the kind of the back side of the hydrograph, which is good. We're discharging, again, 100,000 cubic feet per second. So we have a net or a delta of storage coming out, more than 60,000 acre feet. That will continue to increase in the coming days. We do have a storm coming in later Thursday, Friday. However, the forecasted hydrograph on that looks quite a bit smaller than the event we went through here in the last 3 or 4 days. So we will continue to develop storage, except for maybe about 12 or 15 hours that's being forecast. And then we have a couple more storms forecasted to come in after that time, but we still need to get a little closer to those weather conditions to see how that affects our storage. We expect to continue to make significant progress on developing that required flood storage here in the coming days and hopefully the coming weeks.
You hit 50 feet at this rate? That's the question.
It all depends on the runoff, on the weather systems, the air temperature in the upper basin. These storms look like they're coming in a little cooler at about 4,000 foot elevation, which is good. But frankly, this watershed has plenty of snow and rain in it. But we're going to deal with that comes in. So when or how long this is going to take kind of depends on the dynamics within the watershed. It could be 10 to 15 days. It could be a little bit longer. But our infrastructure is holding up very well, even though it's been damaged. And if we can keep up this discharge rate of 100,000 CFS here in the coming days, we will make good progress on it.
Right here, Dale.
Bill,
How did the emergency structure, which I was told was supposed to be able to handle 250,000 CFS, come close to failing with just a few thousand CFS? What went wrong there?
Well, I'm not sure anything went wrong. I think, you know, that system's been installed since early 1960s. It's been looked at, it's been monitored. I'm not sure the cause of the damage itself. This is the first time it's ever taken water over the system. Part of that is designed for actually a much higher flow event. Sometimes, amazingly, lower flows can cause more energy and cause a condition. But frankly, we don't know exactly why this erosion occurred. The key was, for us, is that we did have our monitoring people in place. This was a new, never happened before event. When we do that, we're going to err on the side of having multiple monitoring strategies so that when something comes up, like we saw yesterday, we see a problem, we look at that rate, we consult with our technical experts, inform our emergency managers, and we make a decision, and that's what we did.
Question right here, Price. Right here, Price.
Thank you. In 2005, there was talk from critics saying that the emergency spillway should be lined with concrete. Do you agree with that? And do you feel like it actually will support more water?
I am not familiar with the 2005 documentation or conversation.
Do you think it should have been lined with concrete?
I'm not aware of the findings or what that was based on, so I can't respond to that.
Right over here.
Listen, I know you guys have been up for a long time, but I have a tough question for you, sort of on behalf of a lot of the evacuees, what they've been saying, and what they've been, you know, that you can understand some frustration. What they initially heard was, hey, there's some erosion, but don't worry about it. Then, all of a sudden yesterday, it was run for your lives, you have 1 hour to live. How can you make sure that they trust you in your messages here? Because now they're, hey, there hasn't been any flooding, it hasn't gone over. They're worried about the trust issue here.
Well, let me take it. So, first off, throughout this entire incident, we have been very clear to keep the public informed based on the information that we were provided. And you need to understand that this is a dynamic situation. There are a lot of variables, a lot of factors. And so when the information comes in, it's given to us, and we utilize that to formulate our message to the public in an effort to keep them informed. When this incident occurred, it became apparent that we needed to act quickly. What's important here, as Bill said, we were monitoring this very, very closely. The fact that we were monitoring it closely allowed us to respond very quickly when that was the appropriate thing to do. Now, as I've said before, I recognize and absolutely appreciate the frustration that the people who have been evacuated must feel. That was not a decision that I made lightly. That was a decision that I made based on the best information provided to me by the subject matter experts in consultation with other public safety officials. And we determined that although efforts to mitigate potential failure needed to take place, we couldn't guarantee that they would be completed in the time frame necessary to ensure that people could be evacuated. And so I decided to issue the evacuation because I felt that protecting lives was the most important thing to do. I think the fact that DWR's efforts to mitigate or prevent a failure at that time by increasing the flows so that no more water was coming over the top of that is a success. And quite frankly, what I see this is as a double success. Public safety professionals did their job to protect the public, and we were able to get people evacuated out of the community in a fairly timely fashion, and for such a chaotic event, in a fairly orderly manner. And at the same time, our partners at the Department of Water Resources were working to save that structure and prevent further damage so that we could go on. That's a double success. Now, as I said earlier, getting those people home is important to me. I want that to happen as absolutely soon as possible. But I have to be able to sleep at night knowing that they're back into that area. And if it's raining and there's more water coming into the lake, if I can't in good conscience believe that those people are safe, I haven't done my job. And so that's what I'm going to do. And to the people displaced, I apologize, but I'm doing it.
Case area up front, and then we'll work our way back.
Right, Vicki Gonzalez with KCRA. How is the state unaware of a motion that was filed more than a decade ago warning federal regulators of the deficiencies of the dam, particularly the emergency spillways, instabilities in the event it's used?
So I personally am not aware of the question that comes over, and so that's part of our vetting process. I myself, in this incident command post, working with my partner agencies, have focused on addressing the challenges that we have at this very time. It's complicated, it's dynamic as indicated. We can't do this without our whole incident command team and a multi-layered government approach. We have our federal agencies, our state, and our local agencies teamed up side by side, along with our third-party contractors, both technical experts and our contract crews. And so we're going to get into recommendations or concerns that were voiced in the past, but right now we're focused on maintaining public safety, not just during this event, but during this upcoming spring runoff period.
Is it concerning to you that there were concerns issued over a decade ago that maybe more proactive measures could have been taken to prevent this from happening?
Yeah, again, I feel like before I can answer a question like that, we need to do the homework and we can have a better conversation regarding that.
Yeah, hi Bill. Jim Carlson with the Wall Street Journal. Could you talk about the hole itself, and maybe is there any way to quantify how much rock has been put in there so far, and what do you plan to do today? Just talk a little bit about what's being done to that hole if you can.
Are you talking about the hole or the little erosion that occurred?
Well, yeah, the erosion, yeah.
Okay, because there was another hole.
Well, in the emergency
okay.
spillway, right?
Yeah, the emergency. That's what we're focused. I mean, we're focused on the whole facility. Let me reiterate: the dam itself is sound. The dam and its historic full is doing its job. We have some little pieces that are critical to the operation of the dam that has been impaired. So we are constantly, again, monitoring that and responding to those threats. So as I understand it, again, this kind of erosion scarp has made its way close to the foot of the apron of the spillway. Frankly, I'm still being briefed on the scope and scale of that. I'm here instead of there, but from here I'm going to go there, and then we're going to be able to work with our incident command management team to vet out how big, how small, and the appropriate response actions to mitigate that.
Here, over here, and then in the back.
Are you expecting people, the evacuation order, to remain through this next rain?
So at this point, I can't answer that question because we still need information that is being gathered by subject matter experts, as I said, from DWR as well as state and local agencies. We need that information to understand the risk, and then perhaps from there, as Bill has indicated, repairs may need to be completed in order for us to determine that it is safe to remove the evacuation order and allow people to be back in. As I said earlier, we are working on a repopulation plan that will get people back to their homes as soon as possible, as long as we can preserve the public safety.
Right back over here.
With the damage at the bottom of the main spillway, what's the potential for that to ruin your plans to let water out of the lake?
The damage at the bottom of the spillway below, again, backing up a little bit to Tuesday, where we had the hole form in the spillway chute, about 3,200 feet or 250 feet from the dam itself. So that hole, of course, with the continued, we had to put the spillway back in use so again we could start releasing water with the oncoming weather that we had. So that process has caused an erosion and put a kind of a spoil pile within that channel at the bottom. So our goal here, so it's running clean right now, which there's not a lot of dirty water, which means it's carrying sediment off that hill, which is good. So in other words, it's not continuing to erode based on the latest intel that's been provided to me. We do have a large soil and rock pile at the bottom, We're actively working on that now to remove that so we can allow those flows to continue to come down that spillway chute and then on down the river.
With two parts of this system compromised,
Excuse me.
how secure can people be right now?
At this point, I'd like to give Congressman Doug LaMalfa the opportunity to speak.
Appreciate it. I've had multiple media inquiries myself here, so I would have an opportunity to address those that may have inquired with my office on that. But leading off here, first of all, I think Sheriff Honey has done a tremendous job in communicating and making the right call on a very unknown factor up here. All the different groups involved here with CAL FIRE and Office of Emergency Services as well as DWR have pulled together, notwithstanding the quality of the spillway, the engineering of that, or what happened with the emergency spillway, putting the parts together to make this crisis work through, they've done a pretty darn good job with that. So, some areas of communication, maybe missed a couple spots here and there, but that said, they're doing the best they can, and I think stability is what is being sought, and there are long ways towards attaining that. So the people of the community have pulled together. It was pretty orderly getting out of town for the most part. I saw the highways flowing slowly at times, but pretty well. Our emergency folks made the right call, making the lanes all going one direction out of town. And then so many people have been an outpouring of help from Redding and Red Bluff all the way up to Grass Valley, people offering homes and places for people to stay. So the community has pulled together very well. My office, we've been in contact with the Army Corps of Engineers to get the right kind of declaration for this district for helping the flood control districts as well as on hand up here at the dam. Going forward, we'll be having those conversations long term to have immediate results. Now, what's Army Corps' role? And what does this make my role? Part of it? The federal nexus to this is that 20% of the dam was paid for by the federal government through the Army Corps. 20% of that, meaning 750,000 acre feet, belongs to the Army Corps for flood control mitigation. That's their charge. The rest of it is a state responsibility. So there's a partnership there. So we'll be working, we're looking for Governor Brown's declaration current to this dam, as well as we're in contact with the White House on this to get the declaration moving there. I've already worked with our House leadership on that. Our House leader is engaged on this. So we're marshaling our resources. One of the end goals here, get through this crisis with obviously no loss of life or undue harm, but also to immediately, when this is over with, to move forward and restore the function of the spillway and the dam, because we'll have till next November to have something that works, depending on what next year's rainfall is going to be. So everybody's pulling together pretty well behind this. They're achieving stability with this, and so we need our constituents out there to continue to pay attention to these folks, to Sheriff Honey's especially with his call on public safety, and adhere to that, because we don't want to be doing unnecessary risks since we've already gotten people out of the risk zones. So any questions to that?
Have you heard back from the White House?
Not yet. They're aware of what's going on here, and they're making their decisions now. So but at least we wanted to have that inroad for when we get back to work. I'm supposed to be there this week, but it's pretty important here right now.
Next in the back.
Can somebody elaborate on the findings about the damage to the auxiliary spillway? And there was talk earlier yesterday about a possible failure of the very top of the structure, which would allow the top 30 feet of water to come cascading down. How likely is that? How possible is that? And what investigation do you know, just after just a little bit of sunlight, that about the structural integrity of the underlying formations underneath the auxiliary spillway?
Yeah. Okay, so we've done quickly. So last night, as soon as this happened, so we got the water. As soon as the water stopped flowing over we were able to use, again, resources here provided by law enforcement to put our resources in the air to be able to fly over that area, go down quick to see if we had any continuing emerging conditions. Based on that monitoring and assessment last night, we felt the situation was stabilizing, and we could wait until first light this morning, which is part of our press brief last night. We said that we need to get in at first light through our consultant teams, our technical experts from state and federal agencies, really frankly in the hole to look at what happened, develop the appropriate control strategies, and at the same time we're already have brought in materials to implement those control strategies. So this morning our team developed a safe plan, again with agreement with all the various technical experts, both government technical experts, state and federal, as well as our private contractors that are on site, some of which have been on site throughout the duration of this event. That work, that assessment, the plan was approved, the safety plan's approved, they've deployed, they've now come back, and so they have briefed a little bit. I haven't been briefed myself, and that'll happen right after this meeting.
You've not been briefed on the damage to the auxiliary spillway yet? Like what the latest assessment is what you're saying?
I personally have not.
That concludes today's briefing.
Do you have a ballpark?
Excuse me, that concludes today's briefing. Some of our principals will be available afterwards for individual questioning. We'll make every attempt to have an additional briefing at this time tomorrow, or as anything appears from this point on. Thank you.